Private equity. What even is it? Think of private equity firms as really sophisticated house flippers, but instead of renovating kitchens and bathrooms, they're renovating entire businesses. PE is wonderful, everyone loves it, and what could possibly go wrong, right? Well, not quite. Your favorite protein bar tastes like shit now? Maybe it's private equity. Your local auto repair shop charges twice as much now? Probably private equity. These companies are to make money, not to help people. Support for the show comes from Bumble. In dating, just like in finance, you tend to get out what you put in. The more intention and openness you bring to the table, the more likely you are to see the kinds of returns that matter. Deep, lasting connections. That's why I'm excited to talk to you about Bumble, today's sponsor. Bumble encourages people to show up as their most authentic self, helping them to date with clarity and confidence. So when you find a spark, you can explore it with an open mind. If you're thinking about dating, you can jump right in with Bumble. What's up, rich friends? I'm your host, Vivian 2, aka your rich BFF and your favorite Wall Street girly. Today, we are doing a deep dive into everybody's favorite and definitely not confusing at all topic, private equity. What even is it? What does it do? And why does everybody seem to hate it? Private equity touches way more of your daily life than you probably realize. That coffee shop you love could be PE owned. Your favorite restaurant chain, probably backed by private equity. And even some of the apps on your phone, funded through private equity money. So today, we are going to break down exactly what private equity is, how it actually works, and most importantly, what it means for you. Let's get into it. So first and foremost, what even is private equity? Private equity, simply put, is just ownership of a company that is not publicly traded on a stock exchange. So if you're an entrepreneur who owns your company and other people can't buy stock in your brand, that's technically private equity. I have private equity in Your Rich BFF because I own the company and you, somebody listening at home, cannot buy into my company. Your neighborhood baker owns the private equity in her bakery. Now, what people typically refer to as private equity is more so the private equity industry. This is the process of raising money from investors and using that money to make investments, oftentimes buy companies. More often than not, the playbook is to buy companies, make optimizations to get the business running more efficiently, and then selling those businesses for a profit. Like I mentioned, these aren't the companies you can buy stock in on the New York Stock Exchange or on the NASDAQ. These are private companies, or sometimes public companies that PE firms take private by buying up all of the shares. Think of private equity firms as really sophisticated house flippers, but instead of renovating kitchens and bathrooms, they're renovating entire businesses. Remember that baker and bakery example I gave earlier? The bakery isn't a publicly traded company, and you as an individual can't invest in it. However, a PE firm might swoop in and purchase the bakery, fire half the employees, build an automated factory, and strike up a nationwide distribution partnership with a food delivery service. After all the changes, they'd sell the whole business for a lot more than when they bought the single bakery shop. So now that we know what the definition of private equity is, how exactly do these companies function? Let's take a look at the actual structure of a PE firm. The easiest way to think about this is to break it into two groups: the smart people who do all the work and the rich people who have all the money. A PE firm is generally started by a crew of GPs, general partners. These are the smarties. They do all of the research, they meet with companies and decide what to invest in, but you gotta have a lot of money to play in this ballgame. So where do these GPs get the money? Not from their own bank accounts, from LPs, limited partners. And while most people think LPs are just uber wealthy individuals, more often than not, LPs are actually financial institutions. So things like pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, aka money from wealthy countries, insurance companies, and banks. Anybody that has billions of dollars that needs to be invested is probably dabbling in private equity. These institutions want to invest in PE because they need to diversify their portfolios. While the majority of their investments are lower risk and lower reward, to hit their performance goals, they typically need to have some exposure to higher risk and higher rewarding investments as well. In return, these LPs pay the GPs a fee to invest with them. So how exactly do these PE companies make money? Well, the typical PE fund charges two types of fees: management and performance. Management fees historically have been 2% of total capital. So if $100 million gets invested into the fund, a $2 million fee annually while the money's invested. Think of this as a membership fee to a country club. But then here's where things get interesting. because the real money in private equity is in something called carry. PE investors buy private companies, often make a ton of changes, and then sell them for way more. And when the companies get sold or go public, PE funds can see huge returns. The general partners, GPs, then get to clip 20% of the upside. So if the investment makes 80%, the limited partners, LPs, would see a 60% return. That's some serious money. The goal of PE companies is always the same: make the company more valuable and more profitable than when they bought it, then sell it for a hefty return. It's the buy, improve, and sell model. Let's look at a really quick example. Let's say a PE fund finds a company they want to buy for $100 million. They then go and raise $100 million from their investors, LPs. They then go and use that money to buy the company. The general partners, GPs, at the PE fund then spend 3 years improving the company that they bought. They are cutting costs, they're growing revenue, they're optimizing operations, and then they sell it for $200 million. So they double their money. This is how the money gets split. The total profit is $100 million. It's the $200 million sale minus what they spent $100 million to buy it initially. The PE firm's carry is $20 million, so 20% of the $100 million profit. The investors, the LPs, get $80 million in profit, which is 80% of the gains, and then plus the PE firm collected those 2% management fees every single year. So on this one deal, the PE firm made $20 million in carry plus roughly $6 million in management fees over 3 years. Not bad for improving one company. The LPs made $74 million over 3 years, which is a great 20-ish% return every single year, so they're happy. The GPs of the PE firm made $26 million over 3 years, so they're happy. PE is wonderful, everyone loves it, and what could possibly go wrong, right? Well, not quite. You've probably seen the headlines. PE firms are incredibly controversial. Now the question is, why? PE funds are often in the news for essentially reducing goods or service quality through their optimizations in your favorite businesses, both big and small. Your favorite protein bar tastes like shit now? Maybe it's private equity. Your local auto repair shop charges twice as much now? Probably private equity. Your company is facing major layoffs? Honestly, maybe private equity here too. So then why are companies taking investment from private equity funds? Here's the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, so let's start with the good. PE can genuinely save struggling companies from bankruptcy. Think about businesses that are drowning in debt or have terrible management, and PE swoops in with both capital and expertise to turn things around. They bring in professional management teams, cutting-edge technology, and proven business strategies that smaller companies could never afford on their own. When PE does this right, they actually create jobs because growing profitable companies hire more people. This is a good thing. But now, on to the bad. PE firms, in most cases, are focused on maximizing profits for their LPs. And there's a lot of levers to create value. But if we're being really honest, a lot of those levers are incredibly hard to pull. Otherwise, everybody would do it. For example, you can improve businesses by inventing new products, selling more of what already exists, or even just convincing other investors the business is worth more than you paid. But again, these are all very time-intensive and challenging things to do. So PE oftentimes opts for something easier, much easier: cost-cutting. This frequently translates to job cuts, benefit reductions, and corner-cutting measures that might make the numbers look better but don't necessarily make the company stronger or benefit those who work at these companies or the communities that they operate in. This optimization process can be genuinely painful for employees and communities. On top of that, another easy way to create value: price gouging. While the product or service might stay the same, if it's the only car wash or plumber in town, these PE firms know you're going to pay whatever they decide to charge, so they're just going to charge you more. In fact, the product might actually get worse and you will still have to pay more. And if that wasn't bad enough, let's talk about the ugly. Here's where things get really controversial. PE can make all of these optimizations in any industry. Their move into healthcare has been particularly problematic, buying up medical practices, hospitals, nursing homes, and veterinary clinics, then cutting staff and services to boost profits, which can literally impact patient care and safety. When it comes to healthcare, a worse product does in fact mean worse outcomes. Some of the most spectacular business failures in recent history have PE fingerprints all over them, companies so loaded with debt that they couldn't survive even minor setbacks. The wealth inequality aspect is real too. PE partners can make hundreds of millions, while the workers at their portfolio companies could face layoffs and pension cuts. And unlike public companies, PE operates with very limited transparency because it is private, so it's often impossible to know who owns what or how decisions are being made. The lack of accountability can lead to some truly predatory behavior, especially when PE targets essential services. So now let's get into where you might be seeing private equity in your life. You interact with PE-owned companies way more than you think. Those restaurant chains you frequent, Panera, Burger King, and Dunkin', have all been through PE ownership at various points. Your weekend shopping routine probably includes PE-backed retailers like Petco and Dollar General. And if you're old enough to remember the Toys R Us saga, that's a perfect example of how PE can go very wrong. The company was loaded with so much debt from its PE buyout that it couldn't survive the retail apocalypse. Healthcare is where PE has been particularly aggressive, buying up everything from your local medical practice to entire hospital chains. Even the tech world isn't immune. Many of those apps you scroll through daily and software services you rely on have PE money behind them, though they're often more behind-the-scenes investments in those cases. When PE takes over a company you love, you'll often notice changes pretty quickly, and not all of them are good. Pricing changes are usually the first thing you'll see. Sometimes prices go up because they're optimizing profit margins. Other times they might go down initially to drive volume and squeeze out competitors. Service quality can be a real mixed bag. Sometimes PE brings in better systems and training that improve your experience, but just as often they cut staff and corners to boost profits, leaving you with longer wait times and less personalized service. You might also notice your favorite locations closing if they're not profitable enough, while new locations pop up in higher income areas. Product changes are super common too. PE firms love to streamline offerings, which might mean your favorite menu item disappears or your go-to product gets reformulated with cheaper ingredients. And if you work for a company that gets acquired by PE, buckle up because your work life is about to change significantly. The first thing to expect is a lot of corporate speak about synergies and optimization, which usually translates to layoffs, department consolidations, and increased workloads for those who remain. Your benefits package might get trimmed, your pension could be frozen or eliminated, and there's often pressure to hit aggressive performance targets. If your company has recently been acquired by PE, don't panic, but do be realistic. PE ownership often means the company culture and job security you're used to are about to change dramatically. So the best thing you can do is stay informed, stay flexible, and have a backup plan. Support for Networth and Chill comes from Bumble. No matter how seasoned you are, dating, like any investment, can always feel a little scary. I know so many couples who have met on Bumble who put in time, energy, and emotions into finding the right partner, someone who has shared goals and genuine compatibility. But the more intention and openness you bring to the table, the more likely you are to see the kind of returns that matter: deep, lasting connections. When you're approaching dating with authenticity, it's also an investment in yourself. Be thoughtful in crafting your Bumble profile and bring the same energy to connections that you hope to receive, because all of that energy enriches you too. Bumble has prompts and interest badges so you can show off your own personality and make it easier to find compatibility with others. You can get to know the little things like how they take their coffee and the big things like their goals for the future. So if you're ready to find a meaningful relationship, one of the most important investments of your life, you can do it on Bumble. Hi friends, quick pause in our show to take a question from my besties in Phone a Friend, presented by Bumble, where I'm answering your burning questions. Bella asks, who pays on the first date? I actually have a very simple answer for this. I know there is a back and forth of, oh, the man should always pay if it's a man and a woman go on a date. Or maybe we should go 50-50. Dutch is the modern approach. But my answer is much simpler than that. It's whoever invites pays. Think about it this way. If I invite one of my friends with me to a show or to a brunch or whatever, unless it's discussed in advance that, this is going to cost this much for bottomless brunch or it's going to cost this much for the ticket, my expectation is that I'm going to be paying because I'm taking them. In the same way, I believe that when you go on a date, it's really important to consider chivalry, but also setting this expectation of if I invite, I pay. This really, really goes back to communication. You want to make sure that you are communicative about money, that you are respectful, because I know the first date can feel scary for a number of reasons. Not only is it stressful because you're meeting someone for the first time, but that awkward, oh, should I grab the check at the end thing? Yeah, it can feel really overwhelming. And for it to just be one less thing to think about, if you are the person inviting, you should pay. Now that you've gotten the easy to understand download, let's get into some Q&A. First up, how can I, as a regular person, invest in private equity? Well, it's not easy. And in most cases, you can't. However, some retail trading platforms are starting to bring on private equity investment opportunities. Additionally, you may have seen the headlines. This administration just made private equity investments in 401k accounts legal. This doesn't automatically mean your 401k money will be invested in private equity, but if your 401k plan administrator decides that it's a solid investment that could make sense for a bunch of the employees at your company, they may make it available as an investment option for you to select. Up next, how does private equity negatively impact people and communities? Why does everyone hate it if it's just investing? Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, more often than not, private equity investments are beholden to the LPs, aka the people who gave that money in the first place. So their job is not to prioritize the workers at the company. It is not to prioritize the community that they serve. Like, the whole family values of a mom and pop shop that is going to do right and save the town in the Lifetime movie doesn't apply here. These companies are to make money. They want to make money, they want to optimize, they want to increase top-line revenue and decrease costs, and that oftentimes leads to less than ideal outcomes for the people that business is serving. But again, similarly, public companies are beholden to their shareholders. So that's why people don't just, give discounts out for free. Like, these businesses are capitalistic industries. They are here to make money, not to help people. What are the impacts from private equity on everyday people? TLDR, things might just get worse while also getting more expensive. PE touches life in so many weird ways. I mean, Blackstone just bought Jersey Mike's sandwich shop. I mean, who has been to a Jersey Mike's? I don't know. I haven't. Silver Lake is buying EA, the video game maker, pew pew, video games. And Permira took Squarespace, a formerly public company, private. So the next time you want a hoagie or you want to play a video game with your friends or even just make a new website for your small business, just know that PE probably raised the price and somehow cut some corners on the back end. How can companies with shareholders stop a PE takeover? The brutal, honest truth here is it's pretty hard to stop a PE takeover, especially at public companies. While upper-level management may hate the idea of a PE buyout, it may just not even matter. Because once you become a public company, I mentioned this earlier, your board has a fiduciary responsibility, meaning they are financially obligated to do what is in the best interest of shareholders. So if a PE company comes in with a sweetheart offer to buy the company at a value much higher than what that company is currently publicly trading at, the board has little to no choice but to consider it and potentially sell the company. That's why there's been so many fights in the tech world when management C-suite execs still own a significant portion of the company and have differing views from the public shareholders. So, for example, at Meta, Mark Zuckerberg still owns a lot of shares, and he may have a different vision of what is best versus regular people who hold Meta stock. For example, he went and spent billions of dollars on AI and virtual reality, and not all of the shareholders were probably happy with that. Okay, next question, and I'm reading this verbatim. Better alternatives that serve all populations, more equitable funding options. So I'm not sure if this is a question or rather a statement, but yes, I agree. A better alternative that is more equitable and serves all populations is a wonderful idea in theory. But why would investors want that versus the option that does whatever it takes to make them money? Sure, there are some impact investing funds that are trying to do good while also doing well, but overall, I truly believe this. There is no such thing as conscious consumerism under capitalism. People are out here to make money, and until we can get people to value something else more than money, which is maybe helping our environment, not investing in tobacco and arms and vice, it's going to take a while for people to really prioritize other things. And until we can do that, people are always going to prioritize whatever investment makes them the most money, whether or not it then ends up hurting the communities that these businesses operate in. It's unfortunate. Next question, how exactly are PE funds able to financially, in brackets, taxes, differentiate themselves from corps? So the gains that are generated for investors and through carry are taxed like any other investment gain. But I think it's important to call out that this is at a much lower level than ordinary income taxes on labor, and that's probably what you're thinking of. When you go to your day job, you are doing labor. You are either typing at a keyboard, doing physical work, maybe you're a doctor, whatever. That gets taxed at the federal ordinary income marginal rate. That goes all the way up to percentages in the high 30%. However, when it comes to capital gains taxes, the maximum is 15%. That is why oftentimes there are conversations with politicians who want to reconsider how carry is taxed, because it feels like all of these people who are typically working in an industry like this or investing in an industry like this are the people who least need a tax break, but they're getting one because it's considered investing and not labor. Okay, next question. How much % of my investment budget would you recommend go to private equity? I think this is a really great question, and it's kind of hard to answer without knowing your whole financial picture, but this is what I always say. Private equity is like the top of the food pyramid, where it's like the candy and the chips, whereas other things in your investment portfolio should probably be a little bit lower. Like if you are not invested in the public equity market, so like the stock market, if you do not have an emergency fund, if you are a little bit older and don't have some fixed income assets like bonds, private equity may not be the first thing I would go to. Private equity, I would say, is a riskier investment with potential for higher reward, but it's something that you need to balance in your triangle, your portfolio. So I would just say it really depends on how much money otherwise you have invested. I would say at a high end, you could have half of your portfolio be private equity, but I would want to see you having millions already invested in other ways. But on a low end, you could start, simply if private equity becomes a available option to you in your 401k plan, it could be 5% or 10%, just something to, dip your toe in. All right, next question. Is private equity ever good for all stakeholders? If not, why is it legal? Well, technically, private equity is currently good for all stakeholders, aka people with money or a vested interest, but that doesn't mean it's better for consumers. That's just the way business goes. Unfortunately, the people in power at these companies are making deals with these private equity firms, and we're kind of just along for the ride. The GPs are feeling good because they've made money by doing the hard work. The LPs feel good because they've made money investing, and frankly, more often than not, the high-level execs who have a big stake in those companies are getting payouts when they get bought out. So everybody who has a vested interest, a stake, is doing well. The problem is Joe Schmo who goes to this pet care vet, or Nancy who lives next door and goes to this one specific shop, like they don't own any part of those things. And thus, they are not considered in the equation of like what is better, which I also think, is a commentary on how important it is to own a stake in businesses that you are patroning and believe in. The next question, how does it differ from public equity? So simply put, this is just the stock market versus private companies. With public equity, anybody who has the money can go out onto the stock market and just log into a brokerage account and like buy shares of something, right? Like if I wanted to right now, I could log in, I could go buy a couple shares of Apple and I would be a part owner in Apple. But I can't go and say, hey, I want a piece of that hospital over there, unless it's part of a publicly traded brand. But like private companies are private equity, and public companies that anybody has access to is public equity, aka the stock market. To wrap us up, private equity isn't some mystical financial wizardry that only affects billionaires. It's literally everywhere in your daily life, from your morning coffee run to your evening scroll through your apps. Understanding how PE works gives you superpowers as both a consumer and an investor, because now you can spot the patterns when your favorite brand suddenly changes its menu or your local gym gets upgraded with higher prices. You might be seeing PE optimizations in action. Here's my real talk verdict on private equity. It's neither the savior nor the villain that people make it out to be. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used to build something amazing or to tear something down. The key is understanding that PE firms are businesses with one primary goal: making money for their investors. Sometimes that aligns with creating jobs and improving companies, and sometimes it doesn't. Being aware of this helps you make smarter choices with your wallet and your career, whether or not you want to support this industry. For most of you listening, private equity shouldn't be a major part of your investment strategy right now. If you're not maxing out your 401k, building an emergency fund, and investing in low-cost index funds, PE is putting the cart before the horse. But as your wealth grows, understanding PE gives you options and helps you evaluate opportunities that might come your way. So the biggest lesson here, knowledge is power, especially in the world of finance. The more you understand about how money moves through the economy, the better decisions you can make with your own money. Private equity might seem like this exclusive club for the ultra-wealthy, but the principles, buying undervalued assets, improving them, and selling for a profit, are actually strategies you can apply at any wealth level, and frankly, even to your day-to-day life. So keep asking questions, keep learning, and remember that building wealth isn't just about picking the right investments, it's about understanding the system well enough to navigate it successfully. Catch you next week. Thanks to Bumble for their support of the show. With Bumble, you get a glimpse into someone's personality, interests, and lifestyle right on their profile. Their prompts make it easy to see if you're compatible right away, like when someone answers, "The way to win me over is having a retirement plan for us and our future dog." You see their humor, but also their approach to money and long-term thinking. Those first impressions let you skip the small talk and dive straight into building a real connection. So if you're ready to put yourself out there, what are you waiting for? Start your love story on Bumble. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Networth and Chill, part of the Vox Media Podcast Network. If you liked the episode, make sure to leave a rating and review and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Got a burning financial question that you want covered in a future episode? Write to us via podcast@yourrichbff.com. Follow Networth and Chill Pod on Instagram to stay up to date on all podcast-related news, and you can follow me at YourRichBFF for even more financial know-how. See you next week. Bye!